Training's coming, boys. There's no stopping the wild hunt. You'll make a fine Ghost Rider, Scott. And I'll have a true alpha by my side.
So today we are taking a dive through the biology, the psychology, and the fatal blind spots of Garrett Douglas.
I'd almost say you enjoy this, Scott. The pursuit of utterly futile endeavors.
Step back from the diverter, or I'll make you step back.
Now that's a German way of doing things. You would have made an excellent Nazi youth.
Maybe you didn't hear me. I said step back.
And maybe you didn't hear me.
To really grasp his downfall, you have to understand who he was when he first encountered the Wild Hunt.
Before he was a megalomaniac trying to control immense cosmic forces, he was a soldier.
Douglas was a Hauptmann, like a captain in the Nazi honor bay.
Which was the real-world historical branch of the SS, right? The one dedicated to occult and supernatural research.
Exactly. So he was already deeply obsessed with uncovering ancient power. And moreover, biologically, he was a Lowenmensch Alpha.
Okay, let's unpack this, because for anyone needing a quick refresher, Lowenmensch is a lion hybrid.
He's a Lowenmensch.
What the hell is a Lowenmensch?
He's part wolf, part lion.
And he wasn't just a hybrid, he had alpha status. So his baseline for dominance and aggression was already just entirely off the charts before he even touched any ancient magic.
Exactly.
Gentlemen, imagine an army not burdened with the weakness of ordinary soldiers. Men who don't need food, who never grow tired. An army of unstoppable warriors. The wild hunt. The living can fight until they break. The dead do not break. This is what the Ahnenerbe has been searching for.
An unstoppable army. Made up of the dead, you say? Tell me, Hauptmann, how would you control this unstoppable army? How do you stop the unstoppable?
With German efficiency.
He thought he could just walk up to the Wild Hunt, this legendary force of immortal Ghost Riders, and recruit them as a tireless infantry for the war.
Which went about as terribly as you might expect.
Take him.
Instead of joining him, a Ghost Rider actually struck Douglas across the back with a supernatural whip.
Ouch.
Yeah. And official canon treats a wound from a Ghost Rider weapon very specifically. If the whip doesn't just transport you immediately to the Ghost Rider dimension, there are supernatural toxins left behind, and the wound continues to leak dimensional energy.
It just pours out of the body until it kills you. But Douglas didn't die?
No, he was very, very lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. He was intercepted by the Dread Doctors.
If that was back in 1943, where's he been all this time? Douglas kept looking. Found a scientist that he thought could help him. 3 of them.
They stabilized the wound, but they didn't close it.
And that distinction is everything.
Yeah.
Because the laceration remained open, it just kept pumping raw dimensional energy out into the liquid inside the tube. And Douglas remained suspended in that vat for over 70 years.
Yeah, just steeping in this incredibly volatile dimensional brew for 7 decades. And this fluid isn't just like tap water. Paul from Teen Wolf News emphasizes just how potent this stuff became.
Oh, absolutely.
This is the exact same fluid the Dread Doctors used to meld completely different creatures together. I mean, it kept subjects alive for centuries. It even resurrected an entire pack of chimeras from the dead.
Yeah.
You think you lost your mind? Watch this!
It's incredibly powerful stuff.
And Douglas absorbed a concentrated lifetime of that raw power.
Well, what's fascinating here is the massive gap between possessing raw biological potential and possessing the instinct to actually wield it.
Okay.
Douglas had the energy. It was literally in his blood. But he had no natural intuition for how dimensional physics worked.
Which means he had to fake it. And that brings us to what Paul calls the pineal gland fallacy.
Right.
The Wild Hunt has one cosmic imperative. They collect living souls.
Exactly.
And Douglas decides that to be a Ghost Rider, he needs to emulate that.
And his method of emulation was extraordinarily violent. He actually began physically biting open people's skulls to consume their pineal glands.
It is wildly gruesome to watch. But, like, why the pineal gland specifically? Why not the heart or, I don't know, the brainstem?
It goes back to historical philosophy, primarily René Descartes.
Why kill for it?
Pineal gland is believed to be the seat of the soul, conduit to express our souls through physical actions.
So someone or something is biting open heads to what? Steal souls?
Looks that way. And the real question is, why?
So Douglas operated on the assumption that if he consumed the literal physical anchor of the soul, he would replicate the soul-stealing nature of the hunt.
You watch this happen in the lore, it looks like it works.
It does.
He eats the gland of a Ghost Rider, his eyes suddenly glow that signature green, and he starts wielding their weapons.
Right.
But Paul argues that eating the gland didn't transfer a single ounce of new power to Douglas.
And he makes a very compelling case for that. The dimensional abilities, that green glowing power, they were already resting dormant inside Douglas from his 70-year bath.
Soaking it in, absorbing the power for 70 years.
So he came out with the power of an Alpha, a Lowenmensch, and a Ghost Rider.
Side effect no one could expect.
The brutal act of killing a rider and consuming its gland was merely a psychosomatic trigger. So, the power was always in the juice, not the gland.
Okay, but even with that mental block removed, we have to look at what he can actually do, because Paul's notes are very clear that he has strict limitations.
He does.
He can use their weapons, he can manifest the glowing eyes, but he cannot open a dimensional portal on his own. He still has to use a hellhound to tear that rift for him.
However, his greatest tactical advantage against the Wild Hunt isn't his brute force, it's his biological camouflage.
Oh, right.
It's his scent.
Which brings us to how he managed to infiltrate an immortal army in the first place. Because the Wild Hunt is not like a military platoon.
Right.
They aren't an army of individual soldiers making independent tactical decisions.
No, they are automatons. They are a pure collective. A hive mind operating on a very binary directive. Travel the world, collect souls, and turn those souls into more Ghost Riders to continue the eternal hunt.
Digital loop.
Exactly. There is zero individuality among the rank and file.
But the lore does show us moments of autonomy within the hunt. How does a hive mind account for that?
Well, individuality or autonomy is only ever granted by the collective to fill systemic gaps. It's a functional adaptation, not true free will.
Like the illusion of Claudius Stilinski.
I thought I'd surprise you.
Okay, explain that for a second.
So the Ghost Riders had erased Styles Stilinski from existence, but the memory of him, the sheer emotional void he left behind in his father, the sheriff, was so powerful that the system couldn't seamlessly reconcile it.
It was breaking the system.
Yes. So to prevent the local reality from fracturing, the hive mind generated an illusion of the sheriff's dead wife to fill that emotional gap and keep the system functioning smoothly.
Styles, is that you?
Mom?
Styles, that's not your mom.
Oh, it is. I know her voice.
No, that's the Wild Hunt. They're tricking you. The Wild Hunt brought her back, but she's not real.
What do you mean brought her back?
Styles, I know what you've been through. I know how much you love your father. But I love him more.
The hive might generate an illusion just to plug that emotional leak.
Yep.
But those are basically just immune responses.
And into this highly tuned, instinctual wave walks Garrett Douglas.
The swarm senses his presence, reads his dimensional energy, and just registers him as one of their own cells.
And that camouflage gave him a terrifying level of influence. Because he registered as part of the organism, his intense, alpha-driven willpower was interpreted by the hive as an internal compulsion.
Your little friends are no match for the Wild Hunt. There are too many of us, and too few of you.
Yeah, when he exerted dominance, the swarm didn't feel like they were being ordered around by a dictator. They felt like the idea was originating from within their own collective consciousness.
That is wild.
Right.
But it begs the question, If his camouflage was perfect and he was successfully steering them from the insides,
Right.
like why risk exposing himself? He could have quietly guided the swarm for eternity.
This raises an important question about the pathology of a megalomaniac.
Okay.
Douglas was fundamentally incapable of being a passenger. His core identity was rooted in his alpha status and his Nazi ideology of visible, absolute supremacy. He didn't just want to ride with the hunt. He wanted to pull the swarm out of their phantom dimension and parade them through the mortal world as his personal infantry.
Yeah.
And achieving that required physically disrupting the hunt's natural cycle.
He had to build a bridge between their dimension and ours. He needed to force a convergence.
He did it.
And to do that, he committed what Teen Wolf News identifies as his absolute greatest tactical blunder. He used the Chimera, Corey Bryant.
Mr. Douglas? What are you doing?
Something I've been waiting to do for a very long time.
A crucial detail here is that Corey had also been experimented on by the Dread Doctors. He was exposed to the exact same fluid that Douglas had marinated in. As a result, Corey had developed the biological ability to slip seamlessly between the physical world and the phantom dimension.
So Douglas grabs Corey, and he forcibly splices him into the vascular system of the swarm.
Yeah.
Attention all passengers. The train will be arriving in 8 minutes.
He uses Corey's unique biology to anchor the two dimensions together, forcing them to overlap.
Paul's analysis points out the fatal flaw in Douglas's logic here.
Which was?
By grafting Corey into the central nervous system of the Hive, Douglas didn't just build a bridge. He injected a fully autonomous, highly resistant human consciousness directly into the swarm's bloodstream.
We need to do something. Not yet. You have to try to save everyone. How do we save you?
He didn't just act as a passive anchor. Corey pushed back against the Alpha's influence, freeing the Ghost Riders from Douglas's forced convergence.
He did.
Wasn't Douglas incredibly foolish to hand the keys over to the literal only person biologically equipped to counter him?
It exposes a massive, glaring blind spot in his psychology. Douglas viewed other living beings as inanimate tools. To him, Corey wasn't a person with agency. He was just a biological key meant to open a door.
Right.
Douglas was so blinded by his own perceived superiority that the concept of human resistance never even crossed his mind.
And suddenly Douglas's fragile illusion of control completely shatters.
Because ultimately, the Wild Hunt does not answer to an alpha werewolf.
No.
They answer to a much older rhythm.
The official canon suggests that there is an underlying cosmic authority governing the hunt, often linked to Odin or his Proto-Indo-European predecessors.
Right.
There is a deep, ancient mandate that dictates when the swarm arrives and when it leaves. And that cosmic authority had issued the mandate: the hunt is over, it is time to move on.
Where are you going?
They just ignored him.
And that is the one thing a megalomaniac cannot handle.
Oh, he completely loses it.
Stop. Zaruk coming. Come back and kill them. To Z.
By displaying this loud, aggressive, distinct individuality, he made himself entirely distinct.
Call your army back. Or don't they listen to you?
I am your leader. Ich bin dein Anführer. Obey me. Gehorcht mir.
Kill them. All of them.
He attempted to master the collective, and the collective simply absorbed him.
But honestly, it makes you wonder if he had just stayed quiet. You know, if he hadn't let his ego take over and started screaming in German, would he have gotten away with it?
Douglas's hubris guaranteed his immediate destruction.
Like, imagine spending 70 years paralyzed, marinating in this incredibly volatile mix of energies.
And applauding your ultimate global conquest the entire time.
Exactly. And then you finally escape. You actually secure the exact immortal army you spent your whole life dreaming about.
Yeah.
But then through sheer blinding arrogance, you just accidentally turn yourself into a mindless, faceless slave for eternity.
It is just such a spectacular failure.
It really is.